What is up, everyone? My name's Chris with Pauper to the People, presenting a Pauper video for MTGO Academy. So the deck I wanted to cover today was the Suicide Black deck list. Reason being is it's been handing me some pretty bad beats on the two-man queues, especially when you're not prepared for it. So I just kind of wanted to show you what you can usually expect to see in it, as well as how to play it if it's up your alley. So it doesn't really crop up a lot in the daily events or the premier events because it's kind of a one-trick pony as far as just getting as much out as possible, and it doesn't really have a lot of options for dealing with different stuff. But like I said, it kind of excels in the two-man queues where people can kind of take you by surprise with it and just beat you down before you even have a chance to really know what happened. So with that in mind, we don't want to change the color scheme. With that in mind, we're going to start off with 20 lands. And you'll notice, taking a look at my deck really quick, nothing above 2. So that really fits in with the theme of it, just trying to hit fast and hard. So we got 20 lands. 17 of them are your basic swamps. 3 of them are barren moors. Now, barren moor is nice because you can cycle it if you're ending up with too much land in your hand. The disadvantage to it is that you don't want lands coming into play tapped if you can help it. You want to have access to that mana as soon as possible, which is why I'm only running 3 instead of 4, because I'd like to reliably see 1, maybe 2 in a game. Okay. Just 4 pieces of equipment in this deck, and both of those are bones, and all 4 of them, excuse me, are bone splitter. So a really cheap, aggressive piece of equipment. Before this deck, I was kind of doing some testing with Dark Favor and Unholy Strength. But the problem with it is that just the nature of enchantments is that they're an inherent 2-for-1. So I decided to go with something where even if the creature dies or they decide to burn it as I'm equipping it, the equipment still will be there. It won't go away like an aura would. So other spells of note, we've got 4 copies of Dark Ritual, which is really key to getting those explosive early starts. 4 copies of Disfigure, which is a very cheap um, instant speed spell that can give a creature -2/-2 until end of turn. Just a nice way to kind of do some removal. We also have 4 copies of Geth's Verdict, where target player sacrifices a creature and loses 1 life. Now, the losing 1 life is kind of a nice little icing on top of the cake. What's great is that it's the same converted mana cost as something like Doomblade, and since it's black and we're playing mono black anyway, that's a negligible difference. But the advantage is that it can still target black, whereas Doomblade cannot. The disadvantage is that the player chooses which creature to sacrifice. So you want to make sure that you're using this in optimum situations. For instance, when your opponent only has 1 creature on the board, or they have multiples but they really don't want to risk any of them. Alright, so creatures. 4 copies of Carnophage. This guy is basically the epitome of what this deck does. Single black, 2/2. At the beginning of your upkeep, tap Carnophage unless you pay 1 life. And he kind of fits right in with the theme with Vampire Lacerator, also a single black for a 2/2, where at the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life unless an opponent has 10 or less life. These guys together pretty much sum up what you're trying to do here. Try and get your opponent to 0 before you get yourself there. So you're wanting to hit hard and fast as quickly as possible, get your opponent before they even get a chance to stabilize, and just beat them down. We've got 4 copies of Dauthai Horror, looks like an evil Snork. Shadow for a black and a colorless. He can't be blocked by white creatures. That's kind of incidental, it's extra value if you're playing a white weenie deck. But the important things are that he has Shadow, which it comes up on occasion that someone can block it. It's usually like a Loot or Ilkor, but for the most part, this guy's going to be swinging in unstoppable every turn. Dauthai Slayer, black for a 2/2 with Shadow, and he attacks each turn if able. Now that's not really a detriment in this deck because that's what you want to be doing anyway. And the shadow is nice as well, since he can only be blocked by other creatures with shadow. Order of the Ebon Hand. This is the creature where you can kind of do a little bit of fidgeting, because it's got protection from white, again incidental. It's got a single black, he gains first strike until end of turn. And he's also got black, where he gets +1/+0 until the end of turn. So it's really easy to help clear out your opponent's board while you're swinging in. It's really easy in the event that you have a couple extra mana left over. You can easily sink it into his +1/+0 ability, and always give him first strike if it's applicable. Wretched Anurid. Black and a colorless for a 3/3 zombie frog beast, which is also the name of my punk band, Zombie Frog Beast. But whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you lose 1 life. Now, it's a small price to pay for a 3/3 at 2 mana. And, again, it fits into the theme of the Vampire Lacerators and the Carnophage, where losing little tiny pings of life that you do to yourself is kind of incidental. You're just wanting to get your opponent to 0 before you do. So that's essentially the deck. Now let's take a look at the sideboard here really quick. We've got 4 copies of Duress, which is really nice to board in if you're playing, for instance, a Storm deck, or any decks that kind of need to combo off so you can take out key cards. Vendetta, single black, destroy target non-black creature, it can't be regenerated. You lose life equal to that creature's toughness. In a pinch, you could obviously use it against a Ulamog's Crusher, but that's a pretty crazy risky move. But that's the nature of this deck, is a bunch of risky moves, because a single black to destroy a creature and to have it not be regenerated is very powerful, but there's a price to that power, and you just want to make sure you're using it effectively. 4 copies of Shrivel, black and a colorless. All creatures get -1/-1 until end of turn. It's a nice tiny little wrath effect to clear the way for White Weenie, and also poison. This really does some serious damage to poison decks. And 3 copies of Choking Sands. Destroy target non-swamp land. If that land was non-basic, Choking Sands deals 2 damage to the island's controller. To the land's controller. So if you're playing someone who's using those Ravnica lands a lot, posts, that type of thing, you can put this in, screw up their mana base, and as an addition, do some extra damage to them. So that's basically the deck. And with that in mind, let's run it through some rounds and see how it performs.